Welcome back to Thrive Well podcast. I'm Jess, your host, and today I am so excited to bring to you Anna Maria Green, who is a licensed clinical therapist and professional intuitive and the creator of the intuitive therapy method, which is a breakthrough approach redefining mental health and healing. Now, this part I thought was really interesting. You help individuals become symptom-free and aligned with their goals in half the time as traditional talk therapy by blending psychotherapy and intuitive healing.
Yes.
And with that method, your work has helped over 500 people feel real relief, experience, not just feel, actually experience real relief and lasting change.
Thank
you.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Let's start off with...
And it's also, one of my favorite things is going into a session and at the end of it, seeing how people already feel the relief and seeing how it's kind of like uplifted from their body and hearing about the progress down the road, even if it's just one session.
Yes.
So, yes.
So is this work, I'm assuming you became a licensed therapist.
Mm-hmm.
You were doing talk therapy.
Yes.
And then what drove you towards saying, what else could we be doing here?
Yeah. So I became a therapist and I was having my own struggles. So my daughter, I have an 8-year-old, her father passed away by suicide in 2019. And I had a really, really hard time recovering from it. I was anxious, PTSD, depression. And I kind of realized I was in therapy twice a week. I was doing all the right things and I was not recovering. And in fact, I felt I was getting worse. And so I knew that there had to be something we were missing in the industry because I've had clients that are similar who've been in therapy for years with very little progress. And it made me start to ask different questions. My best friend actually introduced me to the intuitive work. And when I saw the impact it had on me, I knew that there had to be something and an ethical, sustainable way for us to implement it into the mental health field.
Love that.
So, yeah.
And I love that you said an ethical, sustainable way to put it into your field.
Yes.
I think clinicians... sometimes I've noticed, and I've done a lot of work in neuro-linguistic programming and some spiritual aspects of energy that come along with that. And I've seen it go both ways, where all of a sudden, you learn one chapter of one book and now they're touting this kind of intuitive approach to life and it makes people feel skeptical.
Yeah.
So what have you done as a clinician that you feel grounded in the ethical practice of that?
Yeah. So I would say I have very specific rules. And even when I teach other people of this is what's okay to go. And when you're reading someone's energy, for example, some people will feel like, well, you can just go into somebody else's and get the information. I believe in consent. It's very, very important. I also, with having a trauma-informed background, there are ways that you can explain and or share things with people so that it's not re-traumatizing to them. And I keep within that lane. So I really do bridge, where are our ethical boundaries in, I'm a licensed social worker. So in that field, and then with combining it with intuition, because intuition is kind of the wild, wild west, there aren't a lot of boundaries. So you have to put those boundaries in to get the sustainable results and for people to feel better and not heavier after a session.
Yes. So when someone is coming to you for an intuitive therapy session, what are some of the things that one would need to know or not know? Is it necessary they know anything? Yeah.
So that's the really fun part. You don't really have to know a lot except for probably the process, because a lot of people feel better with information. So I always tell them, you'll come to me, you'll fill out a form, and then if you have a focus you want during the session, you can put it there, but it doesn't always mean that that's exactly what we're talking about. One of the big things with intuitive therapy is it allows us to bypass the ego. The ego will keep us in the same cycles and circles of talking about the same things that we think is wrong, and it doesn't allow us to actually get to the root. So my goal with using intuitive reading with the psychotherapy methods is let's actually see what's at the root of it instead of what we think might be the problem. And that's why people will go into traditional talk therapy and talk about, my husband's making me angry and I don't know how to feel less overwhelmed or less anxious, because all of these things are happening. Instead of just trying to change your environment, we look at, well, what's actually underneath through the energetic work.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so relatable in context of the knowledge I have. So you're talking the difference between surface problems and then root cause.
Yeah.
And most of the time we stay in that conscious work.
Yes.
Right? That's easy for us to deal with and
Yes.
attach to rather than that unconscious
Yeah.
piece. So cool. Okay. Well, would it be okay to showcase?
Yes, I was going to say I would love to showcase it for you. Yeah,
let's do that.
Do you have any specific focus you want?
Okay, if I can choose a focus, yes. How do you want that relayed to you?
You can. So you don't have to give me details. It can either be like a lot of times I tell people like, are you having issues with family life, work, or just like mood and like things like anxiety, depression, etc.
Okay. I'd say I'm having challenge within my physical health.
Okay.
I do believe that's a surface problem. It's not root.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So just give me a second to set my little intentions and boundaries.
Okay.
Okay. So the thing that is coming up for whatever the health problem is, I didn't dive into too deeply what it is, but it feels like it has a little bit to do with the area of the body that's digestive, and like it also your lower back up your spine was highlighting, but where it kind of led me to was a relationship with mom, and where essentially it felt like you had to have a lot of like a backbone, that you had to be very strong, that you had to even maybe grow up a little bit faster than you were ready to. And because of that, your body is so used to working in overdrive all the time and providing for other people that it's just kind of the way that the body's like, no more, I can't do anymore. I need you to work on this. And especially where it's almost like there wasn't allowed to be a softness. So the way that you digest things, especially if it does have to do with the digestive system, is your digestive system is hyper analyzing everything you eat. And so everything feels really intense in the body and kind of sluggish, and like I can't take all the nutrients from it because I'm not really sure. I had to just keep pushing and pushing faster and faster. So even though you might be doing like I'm meditating and I'm doing the self-care things, underneath on your subconscious and like energetic level, you're holding on to this tie and this relationship with mom that taught you how to work through or how to essentially provide for yourself, and it's time to rewrite that. So I'll stop there.
Okay,
I'll pause there.
Interesting. Okay. So do you want me to respond to that?
Yes. Let me know what resonates. Let me know how you're feeling.
Well, I wasn't similar to what you had prefaced before we even started. Like, it might not go with your exact intention.
Yeah.
So that wasn't my exact intention around the thought that I gave you.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say, like, there's no doubt I grew up fast. And that is definitely part of my ethos of who I am, is carrying a bit more responsibility than I think most would.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that part is spot on.
Yeah.
I, for a long time, actually did have digestive peculiarities, I guess, if that's even a word.
Yeah.
I did all sorts of, random checks on it, GI mapping.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty holistic person.
Yeah.
And we couldn't find anything.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, and when I say digestive, it was like, TMI, everybody. You'd eat something that would be fine, but all of a sudden you're like, I feel so bloated.
Oh,
and
yeah,
this
yeah.
is bizarre.
Absolutely.
I don't know why. And trying to get to the bottom of like, why did that pineapple make me feel
Yes. No,
it did today. It doesn't tomorrow. So it's one of these kind of like, I'm going crazy.
Yeah.
That has subsided for me. So I feel like that's been good, but I've transpired, and I'm a health conscious person.
Yeah.
And right now I'm dealing with lung stuff. I'm dealing with the onset of asthma symptoms. I've been, to Western doctors, and they're like, you're an asthmatic now, and now you have to subscribe to all these medicines. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't accept that. And what would cause this, and how do we get rid of that root?
Yeah.
What's actually going on?
Yeah. So what drops in when you say that, especially when it comes to the lungs, is like energetically taking, similar to what I was talking about earlier, of taking on too much from other people. So it's almost like when someone tells you of a problem, even if you are like, okay, yes, I have my boundaries, it's almost like that the younger version of you is like, I can help, I can fix, and take some of that on, and it's too much. So I would say, tell me what kind of like nervous system stuff you've done. Because I know you're holistic and everything.
Yeah.
So, and I can tell you're doing something.
I run a practice that's an ancient Hawaiian healing practice of Ho'oponopono.
Okay.
So I do that frequently, probably daily.
Yeah.
I do run some, again, in the ancient Hawaiian art of healing.
Yeah.
I run Ho'oku'u, which is kind of that from head to toe, anything negative that would be in or around the body, releasing.
Awesome. Yeah.
I have found in those practices lately with how I'm feeling in the last 30 days, it has been challenging to get through those modalities.
Okay.
So what used to be very easy, no problem working through it, now I'm finding myself in this almost repetitive loop. Like by the morning time, I'm like, did I finish that practice? Like, did that happen or not happen?
Yes.
So that's different.
Okay. I would say where I want to recommend is, have you ever done holotropic breath work? So it's like a lot of times they're a little bit longer, so it's like 30 to 40 minutes, and you are in a cycle of breathing. So it's 3-part breath in belly, chest, exhale, but it's all through the mouth. Now I would have to see if like there's any contradictions with asthma.
Sure.
But that is a really good way to reset your nervous system and also to let go of things energetically and physically, especially because it feels like there's just a lot where it's like a lot of it is just really old stress. And so it's piling up, but it also kind of feels like when it comes to breathing, is there a specific trigger that you have?
Yeah, that's a great question. No.
Okay.
And that's just happening for me.
Yeah.
Is that I am trying to trace the pattern of what it was. In the beginning, yes, I could say there was a trigger of cardiovascular increase, what would cause that.
Yeah.
So then, of course, I'm in this situational asthma such a thing. But since then, it's progressed so deeply that it's 24/7.
Yeah. It feels like it has to do a lot with what you're taking on for others, especially look out for relationships that feel draining, that you feel that you have to keep pouring into in the same way. Because whatever season you're entering in, your body's just like, I need to let go of all of that and allow myself to be more present and not be like this message of like, I don't always have to be on and I don't always have to be the person that carries and the organizer. And also one of the modalities that drops in is like lymphatic work is going to be really helpful for a lot of that. Yes, it's going to be really, really helpful for this. So
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good. Well, then I'm on the right track.
Yes.
I appreciate that information.
Of course. Yeah.
So when your clients or patients come to see you, do you utilize your intuitive therapy method with everyone?
Yes, pretty much. This is part of what I use for everyone, just because to me it's the most effective. You know, if I were to call you into a traditional talk therapy session, I would ask you a series of questions of, tell me about the relationship with your mom. Tell me about your relationship with so-and-so. Were there any, adverse childhood experiences? And depending on the person, you have to ask a question in a very specific way to get the potential of close to the root cause. Yeah. And I do it this way. And normally I'm in it for a little bit longer. So I'm like looking at things and dissecting. But it allows me to see past it. So for example, I'll look at if you had a focus of your health. So I'm looking at like a body scan and it's connecting me with, I might see like I saw like a 7 or 8 year old version of yourself and then your mom behind her. So then I kind of follow that, what I'm being shown. And that's what I focus on at first, because I trust with my intentions that the first things that come up are what we need to focus on first. Yeah. So I'll use this as the first I always tell people it's a much more intense version of an intake, because you're not in control of the narrative. It's here, let me show you what's coming up and then let's go from there. Tell me what now, with what I shared with you, what's coming up for you, what emotions are coming up in your body. And it lets us get to the root, just so what might have taken a year to get to, we've now done in one session. Yeah. The first, 15 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is so fascinating to me. I do a lot of work in the, like the science-based release methods, communication methods with self and others. Yeah. And I was floored in the last, I want to say 2 years, the amount of clinicians in those rooms now who are, have incredible educations behind them, licensing, certificates, like medical grade stuff here, sitting in these rooms going, it's not working the way I believe it should. It's not, these practices, while all good intent, it's not bringing the healing or the outcomes that people are coming for us to help.
Yeah.
And now they're using more things like this, different methods that are founded, are practiced, are, deeply documented. And, sometimes for those that haven't studied it, it feels very woo-woo.
It does.
Oh, that's cute that you do. That's what I know.
Yes, my parents are one of those people. They've opened up since I've done this, but
that's good.
The way I always explain it to people is if you need like a science-backed example is you always look at quantum physics. They're usually the closest to backing a lot of the practices in the intuitive world. For example, we know through quantum physics, everything is made of energy.
Yeah.
So a thought, a feeling, an experience. So if that is true, we just have to learn the right methodologies to look into it, to understand it and decipher it. There's also the quantum theory of entanglement. That is, once two energies have entangled, they always impact each other. So and that really supports the ancestral healing piece of it. If you're doing a healing for yourself, it's impacting your entire lineage forward and backwards.
Right.
So we can look in those spaces of science, but there is more and more coming out as people are starting to dive into it, and the industry is growing rapidly. There are, I was reading a statistic the other day, I forget which research company did it, but they were saying that essentially the same amount of people that have licensed therapists, which is 1 in 20 now, also have psychics that they go to, also have like energy healers they go to. And we see an increase in hospitals having Reiki training for their practitioners. So it is expanding. It is becoming more science-backed. It's just something that sometimes people do feel a little bit more hesitant because there's not as many systems that we have in the medical field for the patients or the clients to feel as like sturdy. So in the medical field, we have specific processes that help with liability, that help them feel secure. And my doctor's going to go through X, Y, and Z and can show me this tangibly. In the intuitive realm, we're still building those systems out.
Yes.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it's fantastic that it's being more normalized.
Yeah.
And less of this like, shh.
Yes.
Don't tell anybody.
Absolutely.
Me.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's awesome. Have you done anything for anybody listening that might be curious of how they can go a little deeper in understanding these things or even practicing?
Yeah.
Are there any sources that you would share that you feel are really worthy?
Yeah. So I started, there's not as many therapists that are talking about it intuitively. So I'm always on the lookout for colleagues who are doing that because I think it's important. But I started my work with there was a person that I started following called Nikki Novo, and she has really good basic starting points of like, here's how to start introducing yourself to energy work. She talks about like spirit guides. It's a nice, easy, like dip your toes in. If you want a practice to do at home that I think is helpful is I always tell people one of the first things you can do is if you are feeling some type of tension, anxiety, even like a depressive symptom, kind of drop into the body and see where you feel it the heaviest, and then let that lead you. The biggest thing with this kind of work is you have to drop out of your mind, because the minute you're trying to make it intellectual or logical, your intuition shuts off. Our mind, we learn everything from. So those are all things that our parents told us or things that we've heard out in the world. And our mind is focused on trying to keep us safe, especially if those of us who have childhood stuff we're working through. A child's mind is going to always prioritize social acceptance. So I have clients that come to me, they're like, I really, really struggle with making a certain amount of money or with, putting myself out there. I'm always so anxious and it keeps me stuck. And one of the things I see over and over again is, well, the person running your subconscious is your 6-year-old self. A 6-year-old is never going to prioritize anything that jeopardizes them being an outlier in their social community because they need people to exist.
Yeah.
So that
sense of belonging.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So you want to kind of see how old do you feel when you connect with this thing and then follow the steps backwards, even if it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Wow. And everyone listening is like, yeah, let me do that on a Tuesday. Just go check that out. And it really is, I can say, in someone who is, I wouldn't say I'm a recovering over logic. Like I fare way more on the logic side of thinking than most females, especially. So that's always been something that I've noticed as it works to my advantage in some regards. And then there's other areas where I'm like, oh, I can see where I'm choosing like, there's a process to how we go about this.
Yes. Yeah.
And I can say as someone who thinks analytically and heavily logically that opening my world up to this kind of modalities and thought processes and learning has made
a big difference.
A world of difference. I mean, the peace, the calm, the expansion.
Yes, yeah.
It's massive.
And you get to really step into like who you are essentially outside of what you came from, especially. So
yeah. And you're always in control. I think that's a piece that people worry. I know in the practices I've had that people come to me and they're worried that I'm doing something to them, or you through intuitive therapy work, like it's being done to them. And I think it's important that people know this is a do with.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing you can do energetically unless I accept it and allow it.
Exactly. Yeah. I tell people all the time, because a really big concern people have, especially, so I was raised Catholic. I still consider myself Christian, just in between denominations. But is when I was growing up, there was this big fear on like the devil, and like that was something that they talked about at church all of the time. And a lot of people worry that if they open themselves up to intuitive work, how do I trust that they're not doing something malicious, or that I'm opening up to bad energy? And I tell them, you have to be willing to, you have to accept it. Like, that's something where I don't worry about that, because I'm like, no, I do everything in the light. I work with God. It's not even really a thought anymore or a concern, because of my intention setting. So you have to, a lot of times when you can't trust that, it tells me a lot about how you can't trust yourself, and even not really trusting God in that process. So like, there's a lot there that you can get from if you feel that is something that you worry is going to happen, like that loss of control.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you say that those types of thoughts and people who come from that space, that the physical person feeling scared is more of a fear-based, because we live in a fear-based society. A fear religion oftentimes has this fear-based piece to keep you in alignment, and again, good intent, but still using fear as the modality of like, keep away, keep running away from this. You don't want to become this, do this, have this. How would somebody move past that and be open-minded to learning, at minimum, just learning about this? Yeah,
so I would say to bypass it and how I really helped work through things myself, because before I started this, I was very much like, I'm not open to any of that. Like, I am not, especially.
Really? So you were not?
Oh, I was not. No. My best friend who introduced me to it, we met in college, and I remember her first starting to talk about this stuff, and I was like, no, I'm Catholic. Like, I don't mess around with any of that. Like that, like I was just very closed off to a lot of it.
Great to hear.
Yeah.
Great to hear. I think for anybody listening, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and how I rationalized it was, I do believe that God can bestow gifts on us, and that, even with prayer, we talk directly to him. And this is kind of a version of it. It's just looking at it through a different lens. So, and one of my best friends, she comes from a Pentecostal background, and she's like, we believe in the gifts of the Holy Spirit. And she's like, this just falls under the gifts of the Holy Spirit. So if you're listening, if that helps you, that's something that helped me reframe it. And then in addition to that is, I think you have to look at, if that's a fear that you have, why are you so fearful of God? And why do you feel that you are, I don't want to say the word like weak, but like that other things have so much power over you. And that's something to really look at. And you can even start there instead of diving into the intuitive work. Is, why do you feel that the world has more of a say and a right to you and how you live than you do? Because a lot of times I find that with how religion uses fear is, we're taught that if we don't follow this exact formula, then we will be punished. And so then we start to fear the person, like, where we start to fear God and ourselves, because at least in Catholicism, we learn that we're kind of inherently bad. So you fear yourself, and you fear that you are always kind of one step away from being punished or being bad. And so I think that that's something to look at, and how does that even impact your day-to-day, your relationships, and your mental health? Because that's something that core behavior and that lesson is going to block you from going for the jobs that you want, or having the kind of relationship with your kids or your partner that you want. And that's all really important.
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting concept for us. Our daughter just started going to a Catholic school this year.
Yeah.
My husband grew up Catholic. I grew up Episcopal. And her learning these teachings has been a really interesting family conversation because there are things she's learned up until this point that are contradictory to what she's learning in school.
Yeah.
And so it's really enriched our conversations at home of like expansion of mind and opinions, and it's okay to have both.
Yeah.
You don't have to feel bad about that. But we have noticed there are moments in the teachings from a religious standpoint that they create this shame, fear, guilt avenue of, if I don't believe that and I don't follow that rule, then it is bad. I'm bad and I don't want to be bad. That's why I say all good intent. All I believe totally in what I can speak to, like whether it's religion or spiritual aspect, or if you want to label both as the same, it's up to you and totally cool with me. I believe it's good intent, and it can be completely interpreted through this fear-based lens. And I don't think that's healthy.
No, it can make you feel really isolated. And that's where a lot of people, they struggle, especially growing up. The people I've worked with that especially, they struggle with anxiety, or they're just struggling. Lately, it's been like their relationships with their partners and things like that. When we stop playing, when we have to grow up faster than we need to, our body doesn't really learn how to process things. Kids process emotion and hardship through play. So the less amount of time we had to do that, and the faster we had to grow up and try to think rationally, the more that's going to get stuck in our bodies. When we have a stressful thing that happened in the morning, it's really hard for our bodies to let go of that. And so then it can impact our sleep. And so those kinds of things, I don't even remember where I was going with this.
Yeah, you were talking about from a child growing up too quickly.
Yeah.
They don't have the coping mechanism, right? Is that essentially? Okay.
Yes. And that's just something to look at, in regards to, we were talking about religion before, are the things that we're learning taking us out of being kids and playing. So you'll have to forgive me. I'm 6 months pregnant, and sometimes I lose my train of thought.
Congratulations. I'm not, and I lose mine. That's okay.
I was like, oh gosh, I forget where we.
That's exciting.
Yes.
Okay, so a couple of things that I wanted to talk through that I think are really important are how you worked through these labels that I think are pretty heavy in society: PTSD, anxiety, depression, disability. These things are very real. They're physically present for people, mentally present for people, and then Western medicine has us go one way. I'm married to a man who was a police officer for 15 years, ended as a corporal, undercover work the whole night.
So
PTSD was very much a label he lived with. And I can say as people who have learned this new modality and learned these new concepts, it has absolutely allowed him to blow that label out of his life and kind of differentiate, like, these feelings I can handle separately. They don't have to be labeled like this. And I handle the whole label, right? Which for him was like, oh my God, that's a lot. So how with you saying in one session, you can go from, half the time of traditional talk therapy. So like in one session, you notice a complete shift in somebody's energy and presence. What could you tell somebody right now that maybe doesn't have the comprehension of being able to understand this type of esoteric work? And how can you help them hear it in a way that would be a little more inviting and safe?
How I would explain it, and this is how I talk about it also with my community, is think of ourselves, who we are as people, as there's like a pyramid. The foundational level is energy. Everything is made of energy. We know that as scientifically proven.
Quantum.
So
this is taking us quantum physics, quantum entanglement.
So all your experiences, even the experiences of your parents and things like that, that all exists in the energetic realm. Then a step up from that on the pyramid is our physical body. Our physical body is our most intuitive tool. But when it is clouded and filled with experiences that keep it in a stress mode, it's actually very hard for us to hear our intuition. It's very hard for us to connect to other people. And the energetic and the physical body, they do work together, but they also kind of work independently, if that makes sense. They receive their own messages. You can, if you work with the nervous system, it can help you with the energetic. And then the very tippy top is the cognitive. So that's the brain. And traditional talk therapy it's like a reverse pyramid where the bottom is probably where we would put the cognitive. the cognitive and the brain, it's really its main job is to translate the things between the body and the energy. So that's where it will create narratives, it will create stories that we live out of, and it helps support the ego. But if we can change those first two layers, then the mind changes right away. So a lot of these symptoms exist in the mind space and we blame the mind, but it's very hard to change it if our energy is corded to a bunch of stuff. So one of the things for me when I was recovering was I was corded to this exact moment, like when I found out my partner passed. I would continue, like it would replay in my mind every single time I got stressed. It would like take me back to that place. And that was my biggest PTSD symptom. And then I would start to spiral. But what I had to do is energetically cut from that place and also process the emotions that got stuck, because I went into a freeze kind of numbing moment in back when that happened. But first it was cutting cords, and then it was allowing my body to the nervous system to process it. And once I did that, I did not have any other flashbacks. So it's this, I have clients do the same thing where, and if it feels like it's too much for them to go back to the place to process, I can cut the cords for them, and then we can release just in the nervous system. So we'll do body work, or I'll lead them in a breath work journey, and that allows them to release it without necessarily having to go back to that place. Okay. So that's a way that hopefully to make people feel better. But those are the two kind of layers of how can we look at some of these labels and work through them. Is you want to look at, where is your energy corded to? Where is your energy? Are you sending energy to the past? Is it in the nervous system? Our ancestors and our parents, our grandparents, they heavily influence the way that our body processes things. If our mom, I've seen so many women whose moms have struggled with depression and things like that. And so their body limits what they're willing to take in, because their moms, a lot of times depression was triggered because they had anger or emotions that they felt like they weren't able to deal with. And so now in this, their offspring, their daughters aren't able to. They're like, I have a limit, and I get overwhelmed, and a lot of times we see it as anxiety even before it turns to depression. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you said one thing that in here that I want to take us back to that maybe people are missing. I think a lot of people who think about talk therapy and seeing a therapist, man or woman, doesn't matter. They don't want to talk about their problems. They don't want to reveal their feelings. And so I think that's something really fascinating about the type of work you're talking about, is that you don't necessarily need the content. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah. So, and even I might sometimes see certain content, because the way that I receive intuitive messages is I will see things, and then the information kind of drops in. I don't always need to share with you what I'm seeing. I can probe you in let's talk about this, and I might even bring up like the feeling and where it's sitting in the body, but we don't necessarily have to talk about the incident. So, and it is really helpful for people. And if it feels like we don't have to do that at all, then we just drop into an energetic healing. And the way that you can see that, let's say it's an incident, right? It might be through color, it might be through sensation, and it doesn't even have to be, tell me exactly what you're seeing and exactly what happened, which helps people still cut things energetically and process it through the body without them having to go back to that place. It's kind of similar to the framework of EMDR. You don't always have to go back to the exact place. You can just bring the feeling forward and maybe see a color and process it through the eye movements that way.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Now, how long are your first sessions?
They're usually between 65 and 90 minutes. Yeah. So they're a little longer.
Yeah. Because you got to kind of get in, sit into it.
And I like to leave room for people to, a lot of times, they won't have questions at first, but it's a lot of processing. So I like to give them the space to process what comes up.
That makes sense to me. Have you found in your intuitive therapy method that, do you have patients or clients that come, they receive this work, they progress through it, good things are happening? Is there less of a conscious understanding that like, oh, we did this together? Or do they miraculously almost feel like, hey, I'm fine, I feel great?
So hopefully I'm understanding the question correctly. So you're saying that, do they realize like, oh, we did this process together, or do they just are like, oh, all of a sudden life seems to improve?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. That's it.
So I would say It's a little bit of both, but a lot of times they do tie it to the work that they're doing. Because for a lot of people, they've been in therapy for years and they haven't had the same relief. And usually after, I will say, the first session, they do feel that relief the next couple of days. I always tell people, I'm like, you might be feeling a little like weird, drink water, go on a walk, like your body's adjusting to the energetic shifts. And so people do feel it, and it's a physical sensation as well that they feel right away. And then as they start to see, I had one client who after every single session, something in her life like improved, especially the relationship with her husband. She noticed how she wasn't becoming angry as often. Before she said that she was always tense, she was always angry. They'd done couples therapy for years. And it wasn't until these sessions that she was actually able to start having fun with him and feeling like they were able to reconnect. So a lot of times my clients will tell me along the ways, especially if we're working in more than one session together, I will send emails out to clients who've only had one session just to try and kind of check in. And they're like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you X, Y, and Z. So they keep going forward, and it's really, makes me really happy, but they will notice those improvements.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have done quite a bit of learnings through an organization that teaches some energy work, teaches a more scientific, I would say, like documented psychology.
Is it Joe Dispenza's work?
It's not. Okay. No, I haven't gone down that route, but very similar. It's Dr. Matt James, Empowerment Inc.
Okay.
And he is from Hawaii and has a lineage there. And so that comes into the work too. And it's been phenomenal. However, I have noticed, I remember one time he said, he was like, hey, guys, coaches, clinicians in the room, it's really important from a business standpoint. This is difficult for people that care as intensely as all of you clearly do here learning new modalities. Get paid up front. And I'm saying this because of the years and years, decades and decades of this work being done in my family. This type of work, because it's like an intangible. It's not like, talk therapy. I talk through this exact issue. This is where we left off. I'm going back. It's completely cleared negative charges.
Yes.
And that's difficult for people to articulate and hang on to. Yeah. And so they'll go on their merry way doing really well, which is the intent.
Yes.
However, you did your work, you did your job, and let's make sure that that's handled up front.
Yes. Yeah. The compensation piece is big, especially for healers and helpers and people who care. Because if we had all the money in the world, we wouldn't do it for free. I was like, I do this for free.
Exactly. Okay. I love that, though. I love that the follow-ups, people are relevant and saying like, it's still going, progress in a positive way. Yeah. What would you say, do you have a specialty? Do you have a niche of category that people usually work with you in? Or is it, I can help pretty much? I
will say I can help pretty much anyone. Over the years, I feel like the focus is it changes of what clients are coming to me. So in the beginning, it was a lot of anxiety work. That was what I would say was my specialty for the first couple years. And now I've noticed that it's broadened in the sense of it's people who really want more from their lives and they don't quite know how to get it. And yes, there's anxiety or there's limiting beliefs, but they just don't know how to kick the patterns. Especially I've noticed, like I said, in this past year, there's been a lot of people who are coming with, my marriage is just not where I want it to be, or my relationship with my kids. So I've seen it all over the spectrum, and I've seen it help pretty much everyone. I would say there's not a lot of, I've also had the opportunity to work with a lot of different conditions from the DSM-5 that has been really cool.
Yeah.
But I will say anxiety is a big one that shows up in the symptoms and then also is really well released from these sessions.
I love that because I think that is when you boil things down, it really boils down to the anxiety, the limiting beliefs that are holding you hostage.
Exactly.
We call it a million different things.
Yeah.
So in your line of work, do you want people to come back and see you often, or are you really saying, hey, one session will make a great difference?
My goal is that you accomplish whatever goal that you have, whether that be in one session or several sessions. Usually after that first session, I can tell, are we going to need more sessions down the road? And so that's what I'll usually tell people. Come in for, I call them clarity sessions. It's like the intake, and then we go from there. Because some people, they'll be good. They'll leave with the clarity session because I give everyone a protocol of this is what you're going to do in this time frame. This is the things that are actually going to work for you. and then they'll go on their merry way, and maybe they do like a session a year, or just to kind of keep up and stay proactive with it. For other people, there's a lot that has to be worked through, and they need a little bit of that guidance, that support to move along with it. So I'll recommend here a couple sessions, or I think most of the time it's like 6 to 12 sessions, and normally there's I can do anything within 12 sessions.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. So, but my goal is never to like, I want you here all of the time. I think that was where I got really frustrated with the mental health industry when I was just a regular talk therapist. Was I had a supervisor who told me, you should want your clients to be coming to you every week for at least a year. Like, that's the business model. And I was like, no, because I was discharging clients really quickly, like within 3 months. And he was like, that's not good for business. And I despised it. I was like, I don't want
that contradicts healing.
Yes. I was like, we don't have anything to work on, I'm not going to come and tell them to come in here and so that we can just like chat. Yes. I want there to be a purpose. Now, some clients will be like, okay, we worked on this. Now I want to work on this next level thing. And that's fine. Yeah. But I want there to be a purpose. I don't want it to be like a fruitless session. So that's what is always my goal, is to get you where you need to go so that you don't have to come back all the time. And like I said, maybe you do a proactive once a year or once every so often.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to your integrity and your true belief in what you do.
Yeah.
Like, hey, my goal is to actually help you heal and guide you through these things, not to take your money or your insurance or where we're just perpetuating problems.
Yeah. Well, and I want you to live your life. And like, I'm a mom, so I know that weekly therapy sessions, especially if they're not doing what you need them to do, is not ideal.
Right.
It's just something else on the checklist. So
it is one more activity to get to.
Yes, exactly.
Well, if people want to get in contact with you and get a clarity session or just talk about what's possible, how can they do that?
Yeah, they can. So if you want to get in contact with me, you can DM me on Instagram. My handle is @AnnaMarieFGreen, or you can email me contact@AnnaMarieGreen.com, and we can set up a session. So I would love to meet with you and connect.
Amazing. Yeah. Okay, and if you guys love what you heard here today, please comment below, share with a loved one, because this work, I know personally firsthand, absolutely works. And I appreciate you doing that reading live with me. I know that put you on the spot.
No, that's okay.
Cameras at us. And I mean, thank you. Thank you so much. We will also link out everything for Anna Marie below so that you've got her contact information and you can get right to it.
Perfect. Thank you.